Hello everyone, well we are here for the big one. In this tutorial about Omnisphere we are finally going to look at, big drum roll please, granular synthesis. Yes, Omnisphere has the proverbial kitchen sink in ways to mangle and shape your sound. So if you're liking what I'm doing with these videos, giving you a quick run through of different things to do with Omnisphere, then give this a thumbs up and subscribe to the channels and help this YouTube algorithm out a bit. So first of all, what is granular synthesis? In its most basic form, it's exactly the same as a sample playback engine, except that the sound is broken up into 1 to 50 millisecond snippets. So this is where we get the granular from, as you've broken the sound down from one long section into many minute snippets. So if you slow the playback down, you get a kind of soundscape, and then when you speed it up, it's heard as a single note or sometimes notes depending on the type of sample you're going to be using. So the fun thing is, neither method will recreate the exact same sound you've actually imported, so you're always going to get something different out of a granular engine. So granular synthesis was first invented by a Greek-French musician, and I'm going to absolutely butcher his name here, but I think it's pronounced like Iannis Xenakis in around 1960. But it wasn't until the Canadian musician Barry Truax who used real-time versions in his recordings. So there we have a little background of what it is, where it came from, what you can actually do with it in a way. So by now you may start to have grain, okay, no pun intended there, but of a thought what we can do with this type of synthesis and what sounds it would be best suited for. So let's first create a quick sound. This time, the previous videos have used the sounds from the synth engine. This time I'm going to use a sample because by using a sample it's easy to depict what is actually happening with a sound when I start twiddling with the parameters and trying to demonstrate what the granular synthesis can actually do. So I've got a sound in mind, and it comes from the fantastic Polar Ice X sample pack, well it's patch library by Rocky Mountain Sounds, and if you haven't picked it up yet, go and get it. It is absolutely fantastic, and I will be doing a video at some point on that. And we go to Duo Tri C2. What we're going to do, just increase the amp a bit, take that down a bit. So I'm making some more of a pad feel to it. You'll understand why, because it just smooths it out from when we're playing with the granular engine. You don't have to do that. It's less in your face when I'm demonstrating things. So we're going to quickly switch over to the granular, and we've got all these knobs on here. We'll go and get to those at some point, and we've got the waveform. This is the waveform for the patch that I've the sound that I've loaded up here. So that is what it looks like in a waveform mode. So when I switch granular on, you'll hear straight away a difference in tone and timbre. That's without it, that's with it. This is because it's what I said before, the sound is now being broken up into little grains, and you can actually hear the movements of pitches in there as well. This center display is really handy because it shows how these grains are being manipulated by the parameters on the bottom, because when I play you'll see these little blue lines coming, and you can see it's quite widespread that we're moving these grains. So we have two distinct modes in granular. We've got speed and position. So speed will automatically move the position of the sample that's being granulated forwards or backwards at a fixed rate, and this is controlled by the slider that goes along the bottom here. See how quickly that moves now, those blue lines, and if I move it to the left, they're not as fast, but that's what the speed does. And when we change the position, the slide allows us to select which portion of the sample is being granulated when we move it to position. So with that, it gives us control of what stage or part of the sample we want to affect. So you may only want to affect the beginning of the sound, the attack or the decay portion, a pluck on the guitar. So this is what allows us to do like a freezing effect on just that area. So if I move it to there, it should... You see, that's where it starts. So if I move it to here, that's where it starts. If I move it to here, that's where the granular starts. And then if I move it to here, that's where it moves. And then it goes through the sound that way. So, as this is a slider, you've guessed it by now, you can modulate it. So you can actually modulate the start of where the granular kicks in. You may have noticed those eagle-eyed of you that there's one in the top left-hand corner called Legacy, and this enables us to bring on the original granular engine that was in Omnisphere 1, where the grains were much larger and provided a more dreamy result as the grains were moving slower. So I don't know if this will work on this particular sound, but move the... See, there's a slight subtle difference. It's not as harsh with the Legacy on. So that gives you a softer sort of feel to the granular synthesis. So the number of zones that we can play with it for your grains is determined by the sound source. And you've got a maximum range of the position of this slider that go from anywhere from 1 second to all the way through to 90 seconds at the end. So that you've got quite a lot to play with here. So let's start to look at really mangling our sound here. So with the grain depth, we can increase the number of grains our sound is broken into. So the further right this knob goes, the more grains we get, but also the more demand on your CPU. So be very careful with it, and you can actually get quite a good result from just a little bit of being added. So just this is only a small amount. Now if I go all the way to the max, I'll just move that, change the speed. There we go. So that's what this grain depth does. Excuse me, I'll choke then, but here we go. So the intensity, that's the next knob, that lets us set, can't even get my teeth working tonight, been a long day. So intensity sets how quickly you move from one grain to the next. So because you've broken your sound down into little mini grains, how quickly you move from one to the next is set by this intensity knob. So very slow, very quickly. Now if you want to smooth that over, you've guessed it, we're going to use the smoothing, which this sort of does what it says on the tin there, smooths the transition. As jumping, well, you heard there, jumping from one grain to the next can sound quite abrupt, and it might not be the effect you're after. So I think the best way of explaining this smoothing bit is for those of you used to editing audio, and let's face it, as musicians, we used to audio editing every single day. So if you think about it as though you're crossfading between the grains, see, that's smoothed that out immensely. So we've gone from that to that. So we're actually cross-fading between the grains and making it a lot smoother there. The spread bit alters the placement of the grains within a stereo image. So the wider, which is what I've got it set on, the wider we have it, the more grains are panned in the stereo image. So that is straight in front of me now. Now that is spread out across the sound spectrum there, stereo spectrum, sorry. So detuning just simply tunes the grains being affected here. Sounds like a load of bees coming towards me now, so I'll just turn the intensity down a bit. And the grain depth. I'll just change the speed. And the position, there we go. Now, there is actually one hidden parameter, and we have to go into the mod matrix to use it. I'm just going to turn detuning off and turn the spread down a bit. And I'm just going to the mod matrix, because there is a parameter in here called sample granular trigger. And if we just go to oscillator and go sample granular trigger, you will not find this in the granular page. And the reason for this is because it sort of allows you to trigger single grains at specific time intervals without affecting the size of the grain. Might be best if I do it by example here, because if I set an LFO, and I'll just go to LFO and set it for a square wave, and we'll just set this to a slowish rate, sync 1 to 1. So it's literally on, off, on, off. So if we go to that, and you can see it there with the white dot, on, off, on, off. So what that will do, so if we set that to play a note, it affects a single grain every time the LFO goes above 0, as you can hear. Now, if I go back to granular, you can see it now. You get it none, so turn the intensity down. So that's going to be great if you want that to come on when you say you've got another. Oops, let's turn. So you can bring it in when you're holding down another note somewhere else. So it's great for some sound design there, and you can actually use different modulations. You don't have to stick to LFOs. You see, you could use a mod envelope, filter envelope, amp envelope. You can do whatever you want. So experiment with that. It's a useful sound design tool. And we just get back to granular for a minute. And with pitch grains, we can now set how often a grain will be transposed on the detuning bit here. So the one thing to point out though is these last two knobs, interval and gliding, have no effect if you set this to 0. So if I set that to 0, these do nothing. And I've still got sample trigger. That's better. I wondered why I was only getting one note through. So if I set those to pitch grains to nothing, this is doing nothing now. But if I turn this up, you kind of like have a Tron effect. And as you guessed it, what's happening here is the interval will set the range that the grains can be transposed, and gliding determines how often the grains will glide between the note played and what will be transposed. Now, you've probably heard everything's actually sort of like going up when it transposes. Now, to change the direction, you guessed it, change the direction up or down, up and down, down, up. So if I go up and down, you get grounds going up and down, up and down, up and down, which is quite a cool effect really when you start doing full sound design with this. And you can get quite wild by changing wild. You see you've got loads of them going off now. And the one thing to note is if you are actually doing legacy to get like a dreamy drab pad feel, dreamy pad feel, this mode here won't work. It doesn't do anything. Normal and wild, you can't change anything. You've got to be in the Omnisphere 2 engine to actually choose normal or wild. So there's one last thing to show you, and then I'll shut up and leave you in peace. And that is, you can actually drag and drop whole tracks into, into this middle window, and I'm just going to drop one of my tracks that I did many moons ago. A Rose in the Clouds, it was called, and it should, after a bit of time, import, because we are importing a couple of minutes worth of audio here, so it could take a little bit of time to actually pop on the screen, because what it's going to do is it's going to convert that sound into Omnisphere's sound format. Then it's going to have to break it down into its little granular parts, so it's going to do all that for me, and if I had to do this by hand, well, we'll be here for some time. So what we'll do, we'll come back to this later. Okay, and we're back. The waveform has been imported, and what I'm going to do, I don't know if it'll let me. Right, what I'm going to do, first of all, I think you just need to hear a quick snippet of it. I'm just going to play a quick snippet. So you've got that, and then partway through get. So it's like a bit new agey, you see. So what will happen here is, at the moment we've got the position set here. So if I move the position to here, I've moved it along. You can see the position actually, you can see it better now than in a sample, because that sample was like one segment, so you just played it all the way through. Whereas with this position now, I've got a full song of about 2.5 minutes. I want to just affect, say, this middle position here. Move it on. And move it on. So I want to change the intensity. I want it smooth. Spread it out. Tune it a bit. Pitch grains. Now we'll just have a look. So you can really mangle your old tracks and sort of get even more use out of it. So if I just quickly put an LFO on, I can actually set the position of this, and I'm going to just set this to sine wave free. You see, this is what you can do with these. Absolutely crazy, but you could turn it into a full-on soundscape. So you can say stick a filter on it. I'll slow it down. And straight away you've got like a undertone drone. So there we go. That's your granular synthesis. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and comment below, please comment below. What would you like to see next on this channel? Would you like to see more Omnisphere? Would you like to see a different instrument completely? Sample libraries, another synthesizer? And we'll take it from there. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.